When it comes to high refresh rate gaming, is there a perfect budget monitor out there? Probably not, but how close can we get? Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff, and today we're taking a look at the Pixio PX276H 27-inch eSports monitor. It boasts a 2560 by 1440 resolution on a 144Hz TN panel with a 1 millisecond response time. Alongside that is HDR support as well as FreeSync with support from 40Hz all the way up to 144Hz. And jumping straight into the performance, if you're looking for a no-frills 144Hz monitor, this should be near or at the top of your list. So, thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and I'm kidding. There's a lot more to talk about, but in gaming, this really did exceed all of my expectations. Taking a quick tour around the Pixio, the matte screen is framed in by a moderately slim bezel and does an excellent job at diffusing any glare or reflections, which makes it pretty darn good in a brightly lit room. The monitor's about as bright as I expected it to be, with a rating of 350 nit. There's a small amount of blacklight bleed along the right and bottom edges of the display, but it's really only noticeable when a complete black background is on, and not so bad in normal use. The monitor stand features absolutely zero adjustability, and while I'd normally harp on that fact, it does include a VESA 100 mount, and given the low price point of this screen, you should have plenty of money left over for other screen mounting options if you so desire. One thing I've never really considered taking a look at before with monitors is the power brick, besides mentioning whether or not they have one. In the case of the Pixio, it does require a power brick, but it's a standard 12-volt power jack at 5 amps, meaning that you could very easily source one if your power supply is lost or damaged. So, normally a power brick, not so great in my book, but bonus points because I can always pick an extra one up for 20 bucks if needed. Input-wise, we're looking at a pair of HDMI 2.0 ports and a DisplayPort 1.2. The monitor does technically have built-in speakers, but they're really not something you should be using. I've heard budget smartphones with better tone than these are putting out. And the menu buttons. They're super tiny, and the menu is not overly intuitive, making changing any default settings a little bit difficult. And you are going to want to go in and make some changes. The defaults had the display very washed out in my opinion, with the colors overly muted, and there was a noticeable blue tint to everything on the screen. The PX276H does include a low blue filter mode, and I would recommend turning that on to at least low. Contrast and saturation also each needed a pretty significant bump. You're certainly not going to be using this monitor for color accurate photo or video work, but making these few tweaks definitely made it pleasant enough for gaming use. Speaking of gaming, the PX276H is an absolute joy to game on, particularly eSports titles like Rocket League and CSGO. The image is crisp and very responsive with very little, if any, motion blur present. Even without FreeSync enabled, this panel is not prone to very much tearing, and if there was tearing, it was pretty minimal and not at all distracting from the image. Resolution scaling was also surprisingly well done here, as giving the monitor a 1080p signal was very usable both in games and even on the Windows desktop. While I obviously don't recommend running this panel at 1080p outside of games, it is very nice to know that if your GPU isn't up to the task of 144Hz at 1440p, stepping down your resolution is still doable with minimal distortion or loss in clarity. Those last 2 points, screen tearing and scaling, are pretty important given the price of this monitor. The PX276H is only $320, and that might be its best feature overall. It's basically the cheapest 1440p 144Hz panel available, and if you're a gamer who's been sitting on the fence with a 24-inch 1080p 60Hz panel waiting to make the leap into high refresh rate gaming, this is going to look pretty darn tempting. As I mentioned in my review of the BenQ EX3501R, which you can check out right up there, there's really never been a better time to pair a FreeSync monitor with a high-performance AMD-based graphics card. Between the RX 590 being released and the Vega 56 and 64 both being available for under $400, if you want 1440p and FreeSync, it's really never been more affordable. But what if you run a more modest system, or you have an NVIDIA-based graphics card? Is it still worth it to you to upgrade to a high refresh rate 1440p panel like this? Well, you'll be happy to know that in testing both CSGO and Rocket League, you can actually achieve 144 FPS on average with something as low as a 1050 Ti. CSGO actually averaged 144 FPS on the nose with max settings paired with my i5-8400. Moving down to medium settings bumped that all the way up to 216 FPS. Rocket League managed to do 96 FPS on max settings and 145 FPS on average when dropped to performance settings. So if straight FPS performance is your goal, it's actually achievable on this monitor with some budget-based GPUs. As an added bonus, the monitor actually does support HDR content as well, but just like my summary of color accuracy on this panel, it seems to be passable for gaming use. It did seem to help bring out some of the detail in the shadows and lower the brights a little bit, but it didn't feel nearly as vivid or dramatic as I had hoped for. And it's conclusion time. So what do I think of basically the cheapest 1440p 144Hz FreeSync monitor that's out there? If those are your three criteria, there's no better place to get started. As an all-around workhorse, color grading, workstation, photo editing monitor, this is certainly not going to win any awards. But as a pure gaming display, I don't think there's much better value that's out there. Given the price point at just $320, it's not that much more expensive than a budget 1440p 60Hz panel from Monoprice or Vivotech. And while there are a few things to complain about, like the train driving by right now, it's certainly not deal-breaking if all you're after is pure awesome delivered 144 times per second. What the hell? But what do you guys think? Is all you do on your PC is game? Then this might be right up your alley. But if you're more of a multifaceted worker like I am, maybe you think twice. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to Craft Computing on your way down there. And if you're interested in picking up the Pixio PX276H, there is an Amazon affiliate link down in the video description. As always, thank you all so much for watching this one, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys. Today's beer was sent over by Superfan Skull over on my Discord channel. By the way, if you want to get on the Discord, $1 a month on Patreon will get you access, and you can join the party. So we have Four Hands Brewing out of St. Louis, Missouri, Peanut Butter Chocolate Milk Stout, Absence of Light. Absence of Light is a milk stout brewed with peanut butter. Chocolate malt dominates the grain bill, backed up by a combination of caramel malts and roasted barley, as my neighbor decides to rev his Volkswagen Golf with a cherry bomb in the back. Overall, this gives the beer a very rich, complex flavor with notes of chocolate and coffee. This is topped off with a layer of creamy peanut butter and a slightly sweet finish. 7.1%. Very creamy. Wow. Very, very creamy. There's a little bit of peanut butter in there. Definitely a milk stout. Definitely that real creamy, soft, silky mouthfeel to it. I'm getting peanut butter and coffee. I'm not getting so much chocolate, but usually that comes around when it warms up a bit. So we'll give that time to breathe. There it is. It's more of a dark chocolate flavor. Much more of a bittering chocolate. Pretty good. I'm really digging that. There's a lot more peanut butter on the nose than in the taste of it. You smell the peanut butter right off the bat, and that's really all that I'm getting off the nose. In the body of it, it's just this creamy, smooth, milky, little bit of peanut butter, a little bit of dark chocolate, and kind of a lighter roast coffee on the end. Not like a dark roast or anything like that, but like some Starbucks blonde on the back end of it. Very, very pleasant.